Welcome to Farming for Health, where Farmer Lee Jones and I talk with leaders in food, farming, and health and wellness to spread knowledge and inspire a plant-forward future, starting now. Welcome to the Farming for Health podcast. I'm Dr. Amy Sapola, and today I'm joined by Farmer Lee Jones and Chef Bradley Kilgore. Thank you so much, Brad, for being here.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me on, guys.
Yeah, welcome. So, first, we just wanted to start off really hearing about you and what led you into the culinary world and to become a chef.
You know, I think it's kind of interesting because I didn't grow up in a household where cooking or chefs, let alone fine dining, was even like a subject. Food wasn't a big part of our at-home culture. I mean, of course, everyone enjoys eating a meal, but I didn't realize how in-depth food and how important it was in so many factors until later in life. So I started working in a restaurant at a super young age. It was winter break in sixth grade, so I was less than 11 years old. My best friend and his older brother got a job working weekends, and I just followed suit. So washing dishes, and then I took on little jobs here and there, and they realized that I wasn't, messing them up. I was able to juice the orange or cut the biscuit, and eventually they put me on the line during the busy time, and I would listen to these toast orders. They would just yell out sourdough, rye, wheat, and I guess I didn't screw that up. So then they asked me or showed me how to do the pancake gun on the flat top, and they said, well, when the bubbles come up, flip it over. And they just kept giving me little jobs. I was probably 11 or 12 at that point. And to me, the cooking thing seemed very straightforward. You put an oil, you throw a mushroom on it, it sizzles. When it's brown, it's done. Sprinkle some salt, and you saute the mushroom. So it was very simple, like hundreds or thousands of little tiny simple transitions were going on in the kitchen at a time, but none of them were like overcomplicated to where I couldn't comprehend them. So stemming from that, I just continued getting jobs in restaurants, taking on a course in high school starting junior year. It was fine dining. It was doing almost as good of food as other restaurants in Kansas City or four-star restaurants. That catapulted and put fine dining onto the forefront of my goals from then on. And my mom's side of the family, they're all artists. I can't draw, but I found food to be my medium. I was interested in almost architecturally how you could build something that was stable, but then I thought it was even more intriguing that it not only looks great, but it tastes great. And I have this silly line, but my worst dish tastes better than the Mona Lisa. So
I love it.
And who can argue with that?
right, there's only one way to find out.
I think that's amazing. So when it
Or
comes to
just steamroll.
yeah, when it comes to that creativity piece, how do you find that I guess influences kind of everything you do? How does that thread run through your life? And also, we were talking about your son. Like with your son, are you able to bring that
Yeah.
in already?
Um, Creativity comes from so many different directions, and you can have different outlets for a need of it as well. So, you might have different times of the year. You might have different sort of events or different groups of people that you're speaking to or cooking for. So I really love to be a part of a story, or a plan or a bigger picture, to where it's not just go out and cook. I like to adhere to the concept and the ideas, do research, get inspired by the history of things, maybe bring something back that had been a little bit lost, or you might even have a mix of cultures that you can find some connection to those. I am a Midwest white guy, so that's my my heritage, and then from there really just kind of European, Italian, and Irish. And like I said, the food wasn't a huge part of my culture, so I think non-shamelessly borrow inspiration from many other cultures, because I don't necessarily have a food culture to connect with beyond maybe a little bit of Italian American. So I think that's actually an advantage, because I'm not always grasping onto how grandma did it, or this is how we do it, because I don't really have that reference. So I'm using everyone else's culture to inspire me through travel, reading, and just general curiosity. And even a second that in the Midwest, or at least I grew up, there's not a whole lot of flavors, and I think Lee's helping change that so much. Like, you don't realize growing up how much more vegetables and herbs taste than meat, but you're always stuck with, it's got to have a big chunk of meat on the plate, and a pile of potatoes or rice or something. And the only way meat tastes good is if you crust it in herbs and spices, which are plants coming out of the ground, so it's hard to change that mindset, in our culture, but it's definitely adjusting. And that's another hurdle of innovation that's happening as we speak.
Yeah, that's a great point. And when it comes to plant forward cuisine, what are you seeing, and like what are you doing in your own restaurants as far as kind of being plant forward, or utilization of vegetables?
Yeah, you used to like absolutely have to highlight whether something was vegan or vegetarian. And it was almost, I remember for years, there might not be anything on the menu that was a vegetarian or vegan entree. And you would just wait for one to come in, and you'd look around the kitchen and say, okay, you take your cauliflower, you take your Swiss greens, and I'll add this carrot puree, and we're gonna put a plate up. And that was it. That's all you did. Now it's more exciting than going out and taking a pork rack and making a dish, because we all kind of know how that's going to come out. It's I actually last night was thinking of a new cauliflower romesco, entree, and thinking about how I could get it a little bit more exciting, maybe do some tableside flair with it, really bring it to another level. That was kind of what I fell asleep thinking about. For me also, I do something that is I brine a lot of my vegetables.
Oh, cool.
And I don't do it to the point, I mean, unless I'm intentionally trying to ferment or really do it for a long time. It's, vegetables can be dense, and yeah, you season something on the outside and that's great. But if you can get some salinity or a little bit of flavor on the inside of it as well, it allows you to maybe like roast things whole or in a larger format, and season it all the way through while keeping the integrity or texture of the vegetables. So I find myself brining a lot of vegetables, which usually the first time when I'm teaching a new chef or cook, they're kind of surprised.
Yeah, that's super interesting. Lee, do you want to jump in?
Yeah, I mean, it's exciting to see that proteins are a smaller portion or even non-existent. And, you go back 30 years and Charlie Trotter was the only chef to do a vegetable prefix menu. And like you're saying, now you don't necessarily have to advertise it as a vegan. It's just one of the dishes that's created. And Jamie did,
100%.
a dinner or a lunch the other day, and we had no proteins at all in it. And you didn't miss it. It's just, especially when there's such a plethora or cornucopia of product available during this time of the year. So it's exciting. We're not anti-protein, but I just think that the time and place has come that smaller portions on protein, more vegetable, more fruits, more herbs can play such a huge part. And I love seeing that in your cuisine. It's just, I mean, I'd rather look at your plates than art. It really is. It's art, but I love seeing those plates posted on Instagram.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
And we kind of talked about this a little bit already, but what would you say is like your main inspiration? A message from our sponsor.
Farmer Jones Farm provides nutritious, regeneratively grown vegetables to home cooks nationwide. We seek to provide our community with vegetables grown in a way that's healthy for you and good for the planet. To learn more about Farmer Jones Farm, visit farmerjonesfarm.com.
I mean, I get inspired while traveling, but I've thought about that a lot on why is it the particular places, and I don't think so. I think it's the mental escape from the day to day of work, you know. So yes, of course, you can get inspired by trying new things, but being in the world that we're in right now, everything is at my fingertips. And yes, there are new flavors and ingredients to discover, but it's from what I've done in the last 10, 12 years of my career, seeking out new flavors and ingredients constantly, that percentage has gotten a lot smaller over the years. So I also get excited about like the process and it like working functionally. So, you know, these days in our industry, overhead is so expensive and labor is so expensive. And sort of the margin and yeah, margin can be defined as profitability, but also it's like you get to stay around till tomorrow in the way of like it needs to be considered is how can we give guests what they're looking for, which is like something special, something new, something cool, but also be successful in the track and the path that it takes to get it there. Because you can think of anything, you can get super creative, you can make crazy stuff, but if it can't be produced and like out the door in a manner that is financially safe for your business, then it's not good. So I like thinking of the whole package and how it works on all ends, and that actually helps drive my creativity as well.
That's awesome. As far as you mentioned, like always seeking out the new vegetable, the new thing, what are you excited about right now?
Oh, you know, something I've been playing around with recently in a few different ways. It is two different things, and I've been using them together actually. Is cabbage and Urfa chili, which is a chili from Turkey, which is relatively new to me. The chili it's got some heat. I give it like a 5 out of 10. You know, that's on American Gringo scale, not like Thai scale. Um, and it's still sweet even though in its dry form, and it's also a little bit smoky, so it's kind of like quite flexible. um I've been enjoying we've used it on desserts as well as savory,
Oh, cool.
and then I am using it with cabbage. I really haven't put this dish on the menu yet, but I've been working on it, and I might do my first launch at the Roots conference with the using the arrowhead cabbage and
Awesome.
taking the flavors of andouille with a southern Italian spicy salami paste, basically, almost like a pate, which are Calabrian chilies and paprika, garlic, um, and just combining those two ideas into like a beautiful charred, you know, half a head of arrowhead cabbage that is really fulfilling, umami, naturally rich, smoky, a little bit of heat, a little bit of horseradish going on there. Um, but at the same time, it's, you know, it's half of a cabbage on a plate.
Yeah. I love that utilization of cabbage too, because I think oftentimes you think like cabbage rolls, you know, like beef and cabbage, like not as exciting, but having it kind of just charred and beautifully paired, like I feel like that's a really cool way to elevate cabbage.
I mean, there couldn't be a better definition of cabbage than the one I grew up with. It was St. Patrick's Day every year. It was corned beef and cabbage,
Yeah.
and it was just boiled cabbage. We're lucky if it had enough salt, you could taste it, and some corned beef slice on top. And that was it. That's what I thought cabbage tasted like.
Yes, I know. I feel like so many people are scarred from their childhood with a lot of different
Exactly.
vegetables.
That's true.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, but it's nice to see it kind of used in a different way. And those arrowhead cabbages, oh my gosh, they're so good. And they have like that natural sweetness too.
Uh-huh.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah.
Playing off of that, like some of the slow roasted garlic and the chili powders and things, they'll bounce off of that. And then the charring, like that bitterness that we're gonna get from the the oven roasting of it is gonna balance
Yeah.
out with that natural sweetness.
No, I'm super excited about this recipe. That that arrowhead cabbage is amazing. We found it over in Holland and brought it over. And have you been playing a little bit with that some here in the last couple weeks?
I mean, it was your Instagram that got me inspired to make that too. So
Is that right? Cool.
yeah.
When it comes to like your favorite meal to cook at home, like if you're cooking for your family, what do you like to make right now?
Um, my son, he's like 16 months and he is a pretty adventurous eater. But recently he hasn't wanted big pieces of meat. So what we've been trying to do is kind of hide it. And I've been having fun with different pasta dishes. He loves pasta. He wants to eat with his hands. Of course, my wife and I love a good pasta. So it's been taking like maybe different like little Serrano ham or some organic ground lamb and folding that in with some. One of my favorites is to do like it's a classic Italian combination, like a bitter green, like broccoli rabe,
Oh, yeah.
a little bit of pecorino, lemon zest, lemon juice, and I use fennel pollen a lot, which I think is a great, better than fennel seed because you don't have to crunch on the seed and it's a little lighter on the palate. And a little bit of something spicy, whether it be chili flake or jalapeno, fold it in. And as a family, that kind of really works with all of our flavors, Italian sauces, something bitter, brightness from the lemon, finish it with some cheese at the end. A pasta program at the house is on regularly found for sure.
I
Oh
love
my
that.
gosh. He's going to have the most educated palate as a 2-year-old of anybody in the country.
Yes. I know. I don't know if you've
He's
seen
not scared.
That's so good. I don't know if you've seen the Instagram Cooking for Levi. He's going to be on here too, but it
No.
reminds me of that. It's a dad that's a chef that cooks for his son and tries to make him not have a picky palate. But it is like, how do you get like, these flavors, but still have them appreciate like really good food and that little bit of spice and, all the different things. But yeah, I
We
think that's so
found,
cool.
and I know everyone's absolutely different, but my wife's a little bit lighter handed on the seasoning because she doesn't want too much salt and she's looking out for him. I'm gonna season the way I'm gonna
Yeah.
season, and she's like, he all of your eggs, what'd you do differently? So he definitely already has that discerning palate, and he knows the difference. He's like,
I love that.
I need a little sea salt on there,
Yeah, that's so good. And like that's so good for kids too.
Oh yeah.
So when it comes to like your favorite vegetables to cook and why, like, can you name a couple of your favorites? I know we've talked about a few, but maybe a few
Sure.
top of mind vegetables that are your favorites to work with.
Like legitimate go-to is celery root or celeriac. It is super versatile. It is underutilized. The flavor can be highlighted when wanted, or it also can be kind of masked, and you can use it to give things texture. But a mashed celery root instead of mashed potatoes, roasted instead of like again a potato replacement. It makes the silkiest puree. Which if you're going to make a puree out of a potato, it can get starchy. So it's like gives you all the best of a starchy root, but it's creamy and smooth and silky, and then has more depth and flavor. I've used it for ice cream bases, savory and sweet. I use it to make twills, like little croquants, and which are pretty popular now. People are using all these molds and different things to make beautiful twills. So instead of like a flour base, steering away from gluten or traditional flour, it has the starches but then if you blended a potato, it would be gloppy, and you don't get that with celery root. So huge fan of it. I made like dulce de leche out of it by
Oh my
caramelizing it,
gosh.
and then cooking it with coconut milk until it all deep caramelized and blending it. Actually, I served that CVI with octopus once. Lee stood up from the table and was like, "What are you doing? This is crazy." Uh, but it worked, you know. So the versatility of celery root, and then beyond that, non-traditional forms of allium. So like onion and garlic family. You know, you have your over-the-counter red onions and white onions, and they have their moment. But I feel like, you know, stuff you're getting from the chef gardens and leeks and mimo chives and garlic roots, they have so much flavor and intensity, and it's just different than like this just traditional bulk bulb onions, the little spring onion bulbs, and whether it's raw or literally completely burnt until charred and used as like an accent. I blend that into oils, or I blend that into sauces, or I dry it and grind it into with a little bit of salt. So completely raw to literally burnt to a carbon, they're delicious. So the versatility of that family.
It seems to be one of the most underrated. It's kind of like kohlrabi. You know, the Europeans all know it, understand it, thrive on it, and Americans are slow to warm up to it. I've had more people ask for kohlrabi and celery root this year than maybe ever before. I love to fold the celery root into the potatoes and eat them together. It's just like, just brings that whole potato to life. But
Exactly.
yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I sampled it last year. Jamie had made some. I sampled it at the market, and people couldn't get over it. We were just handing it out, and they're like, "Oh my gosh!" And we sold out a celery root twice. They kept replacing it because everyone was like, "Wow, this is really incredible!" Like, you don't expect it. Yeah.
It's a flavorful potato. I mean, without the overbearing starch that you have to deal with on a potato, it's not going to turn brown after you cut it. You know, it actually just has a lot more versatility, easier to use, more flavor. Yeah, I wish it gets out there more.
Yeah. All right. So now that we said your favorite, do you have a least favorite? Like, what do you dislike working with?
Oh my God! Don't say kohlrabi.
I almost did. You won't find kohlrabi on my menu. But I would say I don't think about it as I think about how much I don't like carrots, and it's just carrots. They've grown on me, and what I've done over my career many times is when I personally don't like something, I make myself cook them and I make myself put them on the menu, because it doesn't mean that other people or the vast majority of the public don't like it. So you'll find carrot dishes, carrot salads, carrots on my menu, but it stemmed from like classic French cooking, where they would teach you that a beef stock to make your like demi-glace needs to cook for like 18 or 24 hours, and you're roasting mirepoix, which is celery, carrots, and onions, and you roast it and you put it in your stock and you cook it for like a day. And then the same teachings tell you to make a vegetable stock. You don't want to overcook them because they're going to be bitter, and you cook a vegetable stock for like an hour. Well, why did you tell me to put my vegetables in this stock for 24 hours? And this one, you told me to put it in there for 1 hour because they're going to be bitter. And then you go to somebody has like a braised short rib, and they reduce the liquid and they glaze it all over, and the big plate is covered in this reduction that tastes like boiled old vegetables. And that is like this traditional French way of cooking. And I hated it. And I just started tasting boiled carrot and everything. And these are those horse carrots, you know what I mean? The big bulk guys. And so I just started avoiding them and not really enjoying them. And when I did have to use them, I would take them and I would juice the cores, and I would cook the rest of it in its own juice, and then puree it to like concentrate the flavor. And this was all before I discovered, Chef Garden's carrots and things where you don't need to do that. I don't have to fix it. It comes right. So, in general, I avoid carrots that's my personal consumption. Uh, but I believe I can cook them well now.
That's awesome. That's a really good answer.
The favorite dish out of the Chef's Garden book that Jamie did all the recipes in is the carrot, the roast carrot. It's kind of a play on roast beef, only he does it with a roast carrot. And
it's like a pot of pho, right?
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, I'm looking for your book. It's here. I just moved and my bookshelves are kind of halfway covered up. I have 2 copies of it, and well, they're in this room. So, and I see them in the corner there, for sure. Yeah, I should have had it ready.
It's all right.
That's okay. I have one right here.
Yeah, I see. I love it.
Since you brought up a stock, I feel like as we go into like fall and winter, stock is a really big thing. In order to not have it taste just like boiled vegetables, do you have any tips for like the home cook on making a really delicious vegetable stock? A message from our sponsor. The Chef's Garden is a family-owned regenerative farm that grows the most flavorful and nutritious vegetables, herbs, and microgreens for culinary professionals and home cooks. For over 30 years, the Chef's Garden has supplied some of the world's finest chefs and restaurants. Now, through Farmer Jones Farm, the same delicious ingredients are available to home cooks in the United States to use and enjoy, delivered directly to their homes. The Chef's Garden mission is to grow exceptional vegetables, care for each other and the land, and to inspire a vegetable-forward future. For more information, visit chefs-garden.com.
Yeah, so I'm a big stock guy. In general, it's totally okay to use your scraps and things that you have. It's okay to use the peels of the carrot. It's okay to use the ends of the onion. You don't need to put the dry, flaky parts of the onion because that's just not going to do anything one way or the other. But when you make a stock, hardly ever are people making a gelatin extraction of a veal demi-glace in their house. So like that is a long, slow process. And if you are, it's a long, slow process. Beyond that, vegetable, fish, chicken, general stock of things you saved in your refrigerator, which is totally okay. You can mix literally everything. If you cook almost every night, you have good scraps. I mean, you'll find like a pre-roasted chicken from Whole Foods in my kitchen almost at all times. And I use the carcass and to make my stock all the time. Not everyone has time to roast a whole chicken every week, and that don't be afraid to use anything, basically, is what I'm getting at. But the technique you want is think of it like a tea. You're just steeping, you're just extracting. You want it barely to bubble. The bubbling just kind of lets you know that things are moving around in there. The process is happening. You can cover it. That's okay. You can leave it open. That's okay. You want just enough stock to cover what you're extracting in order to get the flavor. You can always add more water. You can never make it more concentrated. We have a saying in the kitchen, you can always cook it more. You can never cook it less. So kind of chop your things up in smaller pieces than you would imagine. If you have that. If you don't have to. But if everything is kind of small and like a tea bag, you have little flakes of leaves, and you just put your water on it cold. I highly suggest starting cold, and bring it up slow. Let it cook slow. You really shouldn't make any of your stocks at home for more than an hour and 15 minutes to an hour and a half. And there is a point where it tastes different. So it should taste like soup. So you should taste it somewhere and learn your stock, like taste it at 30 minutes. Okay, not really there. It's just kind of the temperature's starting to come up. Taste it at 45, taste it at an hour. And somewhere between an hour and a half, you go, oh, there's a lot of flavor. Well, cooking it longer than that is just going to change the flavor. It's not going to add more, and possibly make some sort of bitter aromas come out. So you're done. It's less water than you probably do, probably less time, and probably less boiling as maybe the 3 tips.
I think that's great advice, and I'm going to personally take them all. I think I cook mine way too long. So, yeah.
You can do that.
Especially
And
when
if you
you
want
think
to
of
be
it
like
like tea.
Yeah, exactly. Think of it like tea. I actually, at the restaurants, we put everything in a cheesecloth and we actually pull it up out, because I want very transparent, clear broths. And that's it. We even steam them. We put them in the steamer, and so everything is in the cheesecloth in a food container into our combi ovens, and we steam them so that way I can run it exactly at 175 to 185 Fahrenheit, get the extraction I need, and then remove it like a tea bag. And it's very simple.
Oh, cool. That's awesome. I love a good stock can make all the difference. What are some of your favorite ways to use stock in your cooking?
Sometimes when I'm feeling ahead of the game, at least in the house, I'll try to freeze them in ice cubes, and they can kind of get back to them later and put them in baggies. You can have a chicken and a beef or something. But in the restaurants, really, it's about the base of sauces. And I'm not talking necessarily something that is a stock-based sauce. So your classic like chicken jus or beef reduction or things. I always have something like that on the menu, but it's not a standard. That's not like how all sauces need to be. To be honest, most of them are probably vegetable based. So we have a sauce on the menu right now that's a golden tomato, ají amarillo, which is a pepper from Peru, and finished with passion fruit, and it goes with the local fish like a mahi mahi, and the tomato. Like we do all our recipes to the gram, and sometimes the tomatoes are going to be a little bit more viscous than the next batch, and that's something that you can't like just plan on the gram. You got to look at it and be a chef, and we don't want it too thick. So we make a little light vegetable fennel broth to finish it. It doesn't change the flavor, but we do have fennel on the plate, and we have a tarragon oil. So it's just a simple broth, and that one actually is poured over like a tea. So we put gently shaved vegetables in a container. We pour the broth water over it. We put a lid on it. We put it in the cooler, and when it's cold, we strain it out. And that stops you from sitting there and overboiling things. It's just like a tea infusion.
Oh, that sounds amazing. I love that.
It's easy. To be honest, like the more you get to understand what you're doing, the processes, you probably start kind of like simplifying them.
Yeah. So when it comes to farming for health, that's the name of our podcast. What does the phrase farming for health mean to you?
When I heard it first and read it, I thought from a consumer point of view, or a non-farmer, because I'm not a farmer, it's knowing what you're buying and being educated on your product. Why does it make a difference to source responsibly? What are the short and long-term effects? And of course, flavor is great. It can be exciting, but really knowing that how much stuff is out there that we've been told is okay, or for a whole generation or two that this is how it is, and really understanding now that you don't need all that stuff. You don't need all these crazy chemicals. You don't know what they're going to do to you. You could be lucky, you could be unlucky. So just general knowledge, I think that's how I perceived it.
Yeah, I think that's great. All right, Farmer Lee, is there anything else you'd like to say today?
Chef Bradley, you're not a farmer, but we did get you on a tractor.
Yeah. We're going to get Liam on one too.
Yes, we are. Yeah,
Aw.
yeah. No, I'm just so appreciative of you taking the time. I can't even imagine your schedule, and for you to take the time to visit with us it's truly an honor, and it's been so fun. I don't know. I think we're going back, what, 12, 15 years now, our relationship, and just to have seen all that you've accomplished and all that you continue to accomplish. And what keeps me up sleepless at night is thinking about where you're going to be in 5 years. And it's just, it's mind blowing to me. And it's just an honor to call you a friend, and just so grateful for you and for your family.
Same, brother. Thank you.
Yep, absolutely.
It's quite an honor.
Thank you. And one last thing. I know we already asked for your Instagram handle, but where will our listeners find you online?
For sure. Instagram is my social media of choice. So it is my name, Brad_Kilgore, and try to keep it simple. You can find out about all my restaurants happenings, creative things that we're working on. And I do a lot of cool, fun projects throughout the year that are outside of the restaurant. So come check me out.
Can you just give us a quick rundown of where the restaurants you have going right now?
Sure. Yeah. So I have the Concourse Club, which is this amazing property. Basically, it's a private country club for supercar enthusiasts. So
Really?
the guy who dreamt this thing up, yeah, he approached me and said, I'm going to have these guys that have the best of the best, and we want the best of the best on this property. And I'll throw you the keys if you want the opportunity. So I've been a part of that project for a little over 4 years. We do a restaurant called Verge that services the members and their friends. And then we're building an event space that's going to be open to the public to come in and do different, every type of event you want. At the same time, they have these crazy multi-million-dollar supercars and race cars around this 2-mile track. So there's nothing else like it, literally. And I'm extremely proud and honored to be a part of that. And then I have a brasserie in Wynwood. Wynwood is kind of our Brooklyn in Miami. So it's called Marigold's, inside the Arlo Hotel, the first hotel in that neighborhood. So I've been in Wynwood one way or another for almost a decade. It was important for me to keep a foothold there. And there we're taking classic dishes and kind of things that and love, putting our little spin to it. But we want everyone to feel comfortable in that space and approachable, even if you're not the most adventurous eater. And then for those of you that are, we have some great stuff for you too. So those are the two projects as of now. But I work with Formula One. We do pop-ups and events here in Miami and Art Basel, and there's just different things throughout the year that just come up that are extremely cool.
Man,
That's
that sounds
awesome.
exciting. Now you said they throw you three of the keys. Do you get to drive any of those cars?
I do. So there's some fleet race vehicles and some instructors. I need to get a little bit more time out there and a little bit better at it, but I do get to get out there on that track.
Sweet.
It's a joke.
Well, we can't get you on any sports cars, but we will get you back on a tractor. So thanks
I love
again,
that,
man.
I love that.
Yeah.
Thank you, Lee.
Thank you so much for being on. We appreciate
Thank you
it.
so much. My pleasure.
So long, buddy.
Bye, guys.
Thank you for listening to Farming for Health. We hope that you enjoyed this episode. Connect with Farmer Lee Jones and I on Instagram and Facebook.